Immediately back after the potluck, so it's really special. I first became acquainted with Ella at the Y, where I work, and over the years we exchanged pleasantries, hello, how are you, that kind of thing, but didn't really know the real qualities of Ella and how prolific a writer she is. She's written how many children's books?
Well, I've written 9 published books.
9 published books, and
a couple more.
And she has won awards for her children's. The 6 of which won the American Library Honor Book of the Year for children. So, she's just not any fly-by-the-night woman here. So all these years I knew her, I didn't know of her extraordinary childhood growing up in the dunes. And for us Meher Baba lovers, we've always known about the dunes, and it's always been a little bit of a mystery. There's people who always wanted to know more about it. And then when Ella's book Dune Child came out, I was talking to someone who worked at the Y, and I asked how was Ella's talk, and they said, oh, you would have really enjoyed it. She talked about meeting Meher Baba. And I went, what? So I hunted her down, and she has graciously agreed to talk to us today and tell us not only of her meeting with Baba as a 6.5-year-old, but also the history of the Dunites and the dunes, and how how it all happened, how that whole group ended up being there, and it's an extraordinary story. And Ella's book, Dune Child, she was hoping to bring a lot today for people to buy them, but something happened with the publisher, right? So, do you have a couple here to sell?
No, but people can put their names down, and I will send them to you, especially if you happen to include an address.
Now, as you can see, this is a picture of Ella with her father on the cover, and she looks exactly the same. So, without further ado, here is Ella Thorp-Ellis.
I've been very curious to come here because I've been fascinated that you're all Meher Baba people, and what brought you to this particular faith, and what brought. I grew up in a semi-theosophist community, and I can remember I believe very much in reincarnation and most of the theosophy beliefs, and I certainly have great, wonderful feeling whenever I think of the Meher Baba's face. But all I can really offer you today is 2 times seeing his face. The first time it was after, the first time actually was when they were coming down the beach, and Hugo and I were walking down from town, and it turned out that Hugo said, let's be quiet and just watch. And so we saw the Meher Baba and Princess Machiavelli and the Chicago Tribune gal, and they all
You were 6 then, right?
Well, actually, I was born in July 28th, and this was the end of 34. So,
Christmas.
Yeah. A couple of days after Christmas that he actually got down to the beach. But it was a marvelous sight. I was very disappointed in women, though. They looked just like anybody else, and I thought they'd be wearing velvet gowns at least. But it was then that night, some of the people who were considered the inner circle had met to talk with him and have dinner with him. And the rest of us were sitting out in the sand dunes, all the Dunites for miles around, singing and kind of admiring from a distance. And suddenly my mother appears at the door and said to me to come. The Baba wants to see you. He knows there's a child here. I was the only child most of the time, and which was a very fortunate position. Anyhow, I ran because I was lonesome for my mother too, and the Baba put his hands on my shoulder and kept one arm around my shoulder, and it just flowed. And so I got to stay near him for an hour or so that night. It was just wonderful. And the next day, he was in the next cove. They had a kind of Dunite could get to talk to him. And although he had been talking to Hugo Seeley and Sam Cohen the night before, too, and they were both Dunite. But in fact, Sammy had helped build a house for him that the Princess Machiavelli had financed, and he had this house. He'd come, and he didn't want to stay in that house. He met Gavin, our patron of the Dune Forum. He met him in Los Angeles and liked him, and Gavin liked him and had welcomed him to the dunes, even though Gavin at this time was in the East. And so he stayed in Gavin's house, which made the rest of us pleased. And the Princess Machiavelli and the Tribune lady stayed in the guest house. And so although he brought 15 people with him, I think they all found some place to stay. And the next day, he met with everyone again, and then he went off. I think, I don't know whether he went to any other community right around there or not. I think so. I think he was up to you. Well, I don't know about that. But I'm hoping that today I'll read you a little bit about our community, and I'm hoping that you'll ask questions and tell me some of your experiences, because I will say one other thing. There are times, and I wanted to ask the other lady who's seen the Meher Baba, I wanted to ask you if you've had this experience. Once in a while, maybe once every year or two, or these last couple of years more, I wake up with the Baba's face as I wake up. Do you do that?
Not very often.
But you have done it.
I've had dreams of him.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm sure I
yeah.
do too. And so I was delighted that there was someone else here I could ask.
Thank you.
here we have the map of Oceano and the sand dunes, and this is Moynell, where the Baba came in and stayed, was my childhood home. This is where the Gerbers lived. He visited the Gerbers a day or two before, and just dropped in kind of on them because he heard so much about this being a good man and a very competent doctor. Now, Rudy says they did talk about his voice and retraining his voice so that he could break his silence. But he had told Rudy even then, which was just at Christmas in '34, that he was not ready to break his silence. You know, he had to stay for the Hollywood Bowl. And he told Rudy he'd like to retrain his voice, but he had years and he was not ready yet.
Rudy was a doctor.
Rudy was a very fine doctor who taught me, who was supposed to be a cripple all my life, to walk and dance and jump around and be a real nuisance.
And that's why your parents decided to move to
They moved to Oceano because of my paralysis, and also because of Hollywood went broke then. My dad was a Joan Crawford's press agent, and my mother was a violinist and a poet, did some writing for Hollywood too, and they suddenly, not only was it the depth of the depression, but silence were over. Talkies were coming in. It was the beginning of talkies. And that was, oh, and one other thing that happened soon after that. When I could first listen to the radio as a little kid, someone was telling me yesterday, a friend where we were staying, that she had been watching General Hospital. Well, General Hospital, which is a big TV thing now, was on the radio when I was a child. And I only think it's funny because so much of what is considered so different now is an aspect of what goes on generally in human nature. But it's, anyway, I'd like to read you just a little bit about the dunes and about Moynell. Moynell was a colony in the sand dunes founded by Chester Arthur, whose grandfather had been president of the United States. And he had inherited just enough money to start a magazine called the Dune Forum. And Gavin hoped that it would become the New Yorker of the West Coast, either, or at least, and it certainly, a lot of the people who wrote for it later became very famous, and we'll go into that. But at the same time, the Depression was real, and Gavin was not exactly, this wasn't the only cause in the world. He spent a lot of money on the Irish and the revolution there, and he had several other causes, but eventually the magazine went broke, and we probably lost a very good West Coast voice. But Chapter 1. Whenever I think of home, I see myself sitting by the Pacific Ocean at dawn, leaning on a gunny sack full of clams. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
The year is 1933, and I am 4 years old. You can see that's the first part of the year. Hold the fort, Ella, my father, who had dug the clams, shouts over his shoulder as he drops his pitchfork and disappears into high sand dunes behind us. Then I see the game warden's gray car heading down the beach. My dad will get 5 days in jail if he's caught clamming because he doesn't have a license. No one we know can afford a clamming license since they don't have paying jobs. I don't need a license because I'm a child. The game warden is inching his way along. He's giving my dad time to disappear. It's the Depression, and the warden doesn't want to catch Dunites who need clams to survive. I look back, and my father Dunham has disappeared. There are only sand dunes as I lean on the gunny sack of clams. Good, my father is safe. The game warden pulls his Plymouth up behind the high tide line and parks. I wave to him, hugging my sweatshirt around me, and he waves back. Looks like you had good diggings this morning, Ella. With a grin. Not too bad, I reply, as my mother suggests. She says the warden is lucky to have a job in a Depression town where damn few find work. So we have to help him go by the rules. You see what moral training I got. He checks my sack to make sure we haven't taken clams under the legal 5 inches, rubs my head and says, "You're not bigger than a clam yourself." My father doesn't come out until the warden's car is far down the beach. But then he hoists the gunny sack of clams to his shoulder, and we head up the path along a red ridge through willows to our home in Roynell, where breakfast is waiting. My father, William Dunham Thorpe, who prefers that I call him Dunham, is a handsome man with deep-set gray eyes, curly brown hair, and a presence that makes people want to hear what he's got to say. Oceano Beach, our beach, which lies halfway up the coast of California, separates the Pacific Ocean from a stretch of live dunes. There's sand ground from the Sierra foothills over 1,000 years and washed down rivers to our beach in our 20-mile stretch of dunes. I live with my parents a quarter-mile back from the ocean in an oasis called Moynell, Gaelic for land of honey. My father edits the Dune Forum. A dozen or more people living with us also work on the magazine. We have 3 frame houses, 2 house tents for guests, and a garden in a cove surrounded by dunes and out of the wind. I am the only child living in the colony. The other Moynell Dunites are in their 20s and have come to the dunes to write or paint or photograph. Some of us will become famous one day. This makes us different from the hermits who build driftwood shacks in coves near ours. These men are older and expect less of life. They have been put out of work by the Depression. Maybe they've gone hungry. They feel damn lucky to have landed in a free spot where they can clam and fish and feed themselves on their small garden. When we hike into town, the grocer always says, "I live in a free love nudist colony." I can't understand the anger in his voice because as he says this, he's also giving me candy, and I know he carries us on credit. Marion, my mother, tells me not to argue, just to tell him we're artists. I do, and he rolls his eyes. Well, that is my little community. And someone's going to have to ask a question or tell me something about your life so I can get my breath back.
The first part, like you being on the beach, do you have a clear memory of that?
Absolutely.
You remember it as you said?
Absolutely.
4 years ago.
Yep. Oh, it was wonderful. I spent the time
Oceano. And the doctor there attracted religious people because of his ability really in helping people survive polio. She had not yet had tuberculosis because this was when she was 17 or 16. But anyway, this attracted the Meher Baba and other religious people. And Rudy, Dr. Gerber, was very fascinated by this group, and so he in turn embraced the community of Dunites, they were called, because of the Dunes. And the combination of the Dunites being self-sufficient. They lived, as Ella mentioned, they lived off clams. I don't think she mentioned what else they did food-wise. One was that behind these sand dunes, the big front sand dunes in the San Luis Pismo Beach area, south of Pismo Beach, you dig down, really within 18 inches, but down 3 feet, and you've got fresh water. Although the ocean is just within 100 yards, but on the other side of the sand dunes. And so they had fresh water. And so they could attract a lot of these religious people because they themselves were pretty well religious themselves. Well, they were surviving during the Depression through living off the land. There were packing sheds. This is an area where there, and even today, where there are large vegetable gardens, commercial vegetable gardens. And so they have the commercial gardens for vegetables. There has to be a packing shed to cull them, separate them, and get them packaged and send them off to wherever market they can. And so there were a lot of culls. Things that didn't look very good, but they were in good shape.
That's pretty good.
So maybe you can take over. So they had this communal living. In other words, they shared it. It's a kind of living that. Pardon?
I could read also from the book.
Well, the thing is that the book has very little about the Meher Baba. And so I thought maybe trying to explain, especially during this break, explain this communal group that supported religious things and supported people like the Meher Baba and the travels. And in their living off the land, they could share. It was in the Depression, they had no income. The WPA had really not been stirred up yet. And there was local handouts, but their real handouts were the clams, the Pismo clams. the Bismarck clams are about like this, and if you were limited to that size, there were thousands, millions of them this size. You could not take them, and so the game warden was the key about how to get by. And so the community attracted many different kind of religious groups, and the fact that there was, beyond the town of Oceano, beyond the dunes back here, I would guess 3 miles back, there was this Theosophist group that was very religious, and they're a very open group and attracted. So it was really the people in the community who lived there at that time. I came along pretty late, but there are still some left over.
What's your name, please?
Huh?
Your name?
My name's Leo.
Ella's husband.
Leo. And so the community having this strong, I think, Theosophist group next door, and being the Depression, no one having, we didn't have to worry at all. We would earn directly any money, and so they had a religious bend. In other words, they needed something. They wanted something. You want to speak now? Sure, I'll finish it. So, it attracted many different types. The Meher Baba, I really don't know anything about. I've heard the name continuously over the years, but even how to spell it, when I was trying to transcribe it last night, I was erroneous. That was correct. The thing that is really miraculous about this group, though, I think is the Dr. Gerber, other than Ella. This country doctor, Dr. Gerber, he, I think, was a big instrument in attracting people who heard about him, because he wasn't a religious man in the sense of the religion, but he was a man who was attached to, what can we say, to the other world, beyond our world. He was a German, born in Germany, went back to Germany during just before World War I, and that's another side story. But he was the one who helped this community survive and eat well with what they had limited. How are you doing?
I'm fine. There's a lady in pink who wanted to ask.
Yeah, I was wondering if there were in this group people who knew Baba before. Sam Connor.
How did the Meher Baba end up going to Oceano?
Sammy invited him, and Gavin also invited him. And Sammy invited him to stay with him, but the Baba was very fortunate that Gavin wasn't around Mornell at the time because there was enough room then. But, and then after, and then,
Say something about Gavin.
oh, Gavin is the grandson of President Chester A. Arthur. And he was a remarkable man in his own way. For example, he gave me this when I was about 8, and I've had it ever since.
You have a fascinating story of helping Ansel Adams.
Well,
Doing his
no, it was Edward Weston.
Oh, sorry.
Ansel Adams, I could never get to be that close to either Moynell or me. He liked to wander the dunes by himself. He wasn't unfriendly, he was very friendly, and he did one of the covers of the Dune Forum for us, but he was more a
Is this one of his or
No, these small ones are done by Loring Weston, Edward Weston's son. And I had some Edward Westons, but they were big and awkward to bring, so I thought, oh, I wouldn't want to break them. Anyhow, Lauren, I used to go out with Edward Weston. He would let me carry his plates. I was a little girl, and his plates had a little bag, and I could carry them. But I tended to be something of a chatterbox. And he explained to me that it was okay to talk normally, but his pictures that he wanted to take had the world waiting for him. And if he didn't do as good a job on his pictures because I was chattering and diverting his mind, then the world was going to be disappointed. Well, I never said another word, however. And it made such an impression on my little mind that for the rest of my life, I felt when you're doing something creative, you've got to give it your full attention. In fact, anything you're doing practically, you should give your full attention. And so that was, I knew Edward Weston for many, many years, but that was the most valuable thing he ever taught me. I used to hate it when his sons appeared, because then they would carry his plates and I would be stuck. But anyhow, that was but I'd like to know, I haven't heard anyone ask any questions. What do you want to know? Yes.
We always heard the story about the Dunes, that the Dunites, that when Baba came there, they had a cabin for him, and he said, no, I don't want to stay in that cabin. I want to stay in this other cabin. And then it turned out that that cabin got preserved because a famous president had stayed there, like Teddy Roosevelt. So this county or the city or whatever, they decided to preserve that one because of this other reason that the president had stayed there. But it was really, now it's preserved, but Baba had stayed there. And now there's a museum or somewhere you can view it or go
well, it was not the president, but a grandson of the president.
The grandson of the president, oh.
Gavin Arthur. It was his house.
Oh, it was a house, not a cabin.
Oh, it was, Dune houses are cabins.
Oh.
or shacks.
Shack. And you can see it, it's still in existence at Oceano at the museum. And it's, in fact, last time I was in Oceano, they took a picture of me in front of it because I was the last Dunite.
Oh, wow.
So that house is in the Oceano, not in the Guadalupe. They say the Guadalupe had some
well, I think
house too.
I think Guadalupe had the last Dunite's house.
Okay. Yeah.
And you will have to forgive me if I cough and drive you crazy, and if I forget names because I had a heart murmur a few months ago. And it's not going to do anything dreadful except that blood gets into the heart and causes Yeah. No, this way.
Was there Japanese threats, and that's why they leveled the Dunite cabins? They could see them from the shore.
Well, hey, I'm on the other side because there were some people who believed that, and that was why they did it. But there were no Japanese ships that came near.
Submarines.
Maybe a submarine or two.
I heard that years ago.
Maybe, but no major calamity.
Did they just get leveled naturally? Disintegrated?
The servicemen who were there had a big fire one night, or they had a barbecue, or they had something else. And so it was more that. I was there on and off, and that's what it was. We were, but some of the houses we made and are, as you said, one's in Guadalupe, one's in Oceano. They were pulled up. Harold Guyton bought a lot of the land, and so he had some of the he bought land, and he bought some of the houses, and he distributed them to people who needed them. And as far as Oceano and the Japanese problem during the war, some of our very best citizens were hauled off to the camps. And I have not one good word to say about the camps, except that one of our close friends, who's Japanese, became the first Japanese professor at Cal after the war because of this. And of course, the fact that my husband's a quarter Japanese has nothing to do with it. Yeah.
Oh, let someone else go.
Well, no, you.
Oh, very sweet. I was wondering what you remember about looking in Meher Baba's face. Did he say anything? Or did you say that?
But I think it'd be nice to hear it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
his face had the most wonderful glow. And he focused his attention completely on me, and then on the next person he was talking to, and then on the next person. It was astonishing. But there was this glow and these wonderful eyes that all I can say is it was just one of life's best experiences. And I had heard something about him because Sammy Cohen was a Dunite that was close to me. And of course the house had been built that they didn't sleep in and all these things. But it's, I think it was quite, his face was just totally, I hate to use the word totally glowing maybe, but also positive, which we could use a lot more of these days. And
Yeah, I was just wondering, and I did read your book and loved it.
I'm
It was
glad.
really a pleasure. Sam Cohen, he left with Norina, Elizabeth, and Meher Baba when they left. And did you ever hear from him? Did any of the Dunites hear from him again before he came back to go to Brooklyn with his family?
Well, he left with the President Ashbelly and the rest of them, and came back after a couple of weeks. He stayed with him in the house. And then he came back, and what he didn't tell us was that they had given him enough money to join them in wherever it was, New York or wherever it was, to take a boat. But then one night, after a few months in the dunes, or a couple of months, he went up to Rudy's in the middle of the night, knocked on the door, and Rudy answered, and Sam said, "Where is?" I don't know whether they were going to Australia then or where it was, but I think it might have been. Where is this? And Rudy, no, it was someplace in South America. Rudy showed them. It was in Chile, that's what it was. Rudy showed him, and Sam said, "All right, I'm going." And Rudy said, "When?" And Sam said, "Right now." And that was the last we heard of Sam until a postcard came to the Carl Angelo at the grocery store, to whom Sam owed some money, and to us at the Gerber house. And mainly me, actually. And he said that he had a first-class cabin on the ship, and everyone in Oceano spent the next 6 months wondering how he could afford a first-class cabin. Then nobody heard for a long time, and I think about 6 or 7 years in, someone heard from Australia. And then someone who'd come from Australia, I can't remember who it was. And then no one heard again until after the Meher Baba had died, and soon after that, Sammy's father died. And then a couple of postcards came that said that Sam was going back to New York to manage his father's sausage factory. And we all thought, oh yeah, after all this. But he did for his family, his father's family. And that was Sam Cohen's life.
What was he asking Dr. Gerber where what was?
It was someplace in Chile, and I'd have to look it up.
What was?
That he heard Baba was going to. Right?
Yes, that the Baba was going to.
Which he didn't go. Meher Baba never went there.
He did go where I'm thinking of, but
he didn't go to South America or Australia at that time.
Vancouver, that.
Yeah, he went to Vancouver.
The wrong direction.
Someplace in Chile. Not Chile, Chile.
I guess that was it.
So was that Dr. Gerber had some way of knowing where Baba was going?
No, not at all.
The Sam found out somehow.
Well, Sam found out and said, where is Vancouver? I got it.
Sam was told by the Baba when we had figured out that Sam must have been told by the Baba or the people with the Baba. You know, the Baba didn't speak. He wrote things on this board. I mean,
pointed the letters.
yes, pointed the letters. And he had for many years a man who knew everything that he wanted to say. And that eventually collapsed, but no.
Recently, maybe a couple months ago, I actually Googled Sam Cullen. Fascinated. Maybe fascinated.
Really?
Well, fascinated by the fact you were coming, so he was kind of one of the mysteries of our little world. And apparently he went to India, did many years in India, what he did, I don't know. And his father died in the 40s, and he came back in the 40s and took over the sausage factory in Brooklyn. And I don't think anybody ever met him. And he's kind of a mystery guest.
He went to NASA. He stayed there for a couple of months.
Yeah, he was right in 37 maybe.
37 then.
But he also stayed in India for many years.
After that,
Did he stay with Baba?
That was
Did he stay with Baba?
a Baba connection.
Yeah, for a couple of months, I believe.
He did.
Yeah, but apparently from at least the Wikipedia or Google, he traveled around India. I don't know what part of it was on.
Ella, when you met Meher Baba, do you remember? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Go again.
Well, I was reading what I had for you. You had a question about Eric.
Well, I just was going to ask at the time when you said in your book that there was somebody interpreting Baba's gestures there.
Yeah.
Do you remember that person's name? Because it was 1933. It probably was before Eric, wasn't it?
I never heard his name, but Chanji.
He had glasses.
Yes, he had
Thin
glasses.
man.
Yes.
No, handsome man.
Very handsome.
Baba wasn't there in 33. Okay,
Was
he was there in 32 and 34.
Chanji wasn't there?
Yeah, Baba wasn't there in 33.
No, he was there in 34.
34.
You should show her some pictures and then she can see.
Yeah, Lord, yeah.
So what were you going to ask?
I was going to ask you, Ella, when you met Meher Baba and you remember the lovely feelings that came over you when you met him, did he say anything to you, or do you recall any voice in your mind, or do you recall anything to that effect?
No, I was just very happy and kind of proud of myself. Here I was, this little kid, always grown up. I love the feeling of having his arm around me. I just love that. And
Did it feel different from your parents?
oh yes. Yes, there was an electricity about it, but there was my parents. Although I love having my parents' arms around me too. My father carried me for a couple of years after I was sick.
The Tribune lady you were talking about, her name is Elizabeth Chapin Patterson.
Patterson, that's right.
Her father was Henry Simeon Chapin. He had property in an area in Coley County. It's now known as Myrtle Beach. You've heard of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina?
I've heard of Myrtle Beach.
And he and his partner Burroughs essentially started Myrtle Beach. And he gave 500 acres to his daughter, the Tribune lady. And they have a center there called the Meher Spiritual Center. Myrtle Beach is basically a large golf course at this point, except for the Meher Spiritual Center. And it's very developed as a recreational area. So that's who the Tribune lady. She drove an ambulance during the First World War. She was a remarkable soul.
I knew that.
One of the most remarkable souls, like profound Princess
Nashville.
They lived in India for many, many years. And she drove Meher Baba all over India. She was his driver. And there was an accident in Oklahoma in 1952, suffered serious injuries, and she was the driver at that time as well. So that's the Tribune. But there's no way to describe it because of wrong details.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't.
Excuse me. You say that you sometimes wake up and you see Baba's face right there. Has this been happening your entire life, or is this only something that's happened recently? And I'm curious, was it when he was? Was it the same face has the age when you originally met him, or does it change? Or I'm just curious what Bob face you see. You see a lot of Bob face.
I think it started. I don't remember it when I was a kid. Although I think I did have it a few times. But I got more of it the last 10 or 15 years. And no, he didn't really change.
It's the same.
It was the face I'd seen.
When that happens, do you get that feeling of happy?
Yes, I do. I face the tension that I may have been under away.
Have you read, or have you ever been curious about Meher Baba's life or anything? Have you ever read on it, or is it just?
I've read some of the Globe magazines, and
There was an article about you.
National. National.
oh, well, I must look that up.
Did you ever correspond with the Meher Baba?
Oh, no.
Why not?
I would
Did it not?
never have had the nerve to do anything like that.
No, but as she was growing up. As you were growing up, in all the intervening years, did you ever occur to you that you might communicate with him somehow?
No, it didn't. I didn't. I felt that he was a great man and had a lot more important things to do than correspond with me. Oh, yes. Yeah.
What did you think of Princess Marina Lashabella? Did you have any contact with her?
I had little contact with her, and I liked her. She was a very pleasant, sweet person. I had a little more contact, actually, with Mrs. Patterson. And she was a strong, kind of more definite. Yeah, she was. And she could say things that would make a kid laugh. Yeah.
Do you recall any of the other, there were others with him, I gather from the book. Do you recall any of the other names of the people that were with him?
No, I didn't, I'm sure you can find the names.
Yeah, does anybody know? Who else was
We have the book here. It's in order. No, I think Cocker was there. Yeah, there's a bunch of them, several men. I think I was junior, might have been there.
Barham was there, and John.
What other women?
John was there?
Yeah.
Just the two.
Just those two.
Marina, Elizabeth, Ruano, Nadine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Gavin Arthur never met Meher Baba.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he did.
He met Meher Baba in Los Angeles before Meher Baba came up, and he met him several more times.
You remember Nadine's whole story as part of the group?
I remember hearing the name, but I don't. I didn't. I was a kid. Groups of people were always coming up to the dunes, and yeah.
You mentioned that many of the people were out of the Theosophy movement.
Yes.
As part of the colony. Did you ever have any? There was another spiritual man that came out of that group, Rudy. Did you ever have any involvement?
Yes, I met Krishnamurti several times, but I don't remember him as well as I do the Meher Baba.
There's a reason for that.
I really don't. I was trying to think of him because I knew someone would make that connection. And I knew I met him, but I don't really remember.
He started a group in Ohio.
Yes, I know he did.
Spent a lot of time.
But and I know that the people in Moynell respected him a lot, and he came several times. But I must have been out carrying plates for Edward. Yeah.
I don't know about the years, but I remember reading, possibly in your book that, and maybe another book, that John Steinbeck was in Moynell. Do you have any recollection?
No, I knew John Steinbeck very well. I used to wait for him to come. He never lived in Moynell, but he was at I read recently in a book about him that he was at a very depressed period in his life at that time. And he used to come to the dunes because in Moynell there were people who wanted to write and were good critics and would cheer him on. And so he would come frequently and read his chapters. Tortilla Flat is the book I remember that he was reading. And he would take me for walks. One time, he took me for a walk up to, if you're the only kid. One time he took me for a walk up to the hobo colony in Oceano, and for the first time in my life, I smelled this wonderful smell. They were cooking, and I said to John, "What is it?" And he went up to the guy cooking, and he said, "I don't think she's ever tasted bacon before." And I got my first bacon. It was marvelous. But I think he got a lot more that we read about later. But he made several trips, a lot of trips up around there. Yeah.
Were you vegetarian? Did you say?
Well, nobody had any money to buy meat. So we had clam chowder. Seldom made with milk because we didn't have milk, but we didn't. Once in a while, someone would kill a birds, and we had birds, or someone would kill a small possum or something. And then there's the chapter that I have in this book about the time that Carl Beckstead yearned for fresh meat so much he shot a swan.
Oh, I read that.
Which was illegal even in those days. And so they had to can it and bury all the bones and bury it deep enough so that my dog wouldn't dig them up because they would be put in jail.
And for Thanksgiving, did you just form a bunch of clams into a turkey?
For Thanksgiving, most of the people in the dune tried to get invited to somebody. Is my memory of it. Lee, did you want to show us something?
No, I was just looking at this.
I have a question. Where did you go to school, or did you go to school?
I did go to school. I went into Oceano Grammar School, but I only went those first few years, about half the time, and my mother would teach me, or someone else would teach me, and the school mistress brought me down all my lessons if I wasn't in town, because there were always epidemics of some sort, and I had to be gotten out of the way of them. So I would go back. I was always happiest in the dunes anyhow, so that was fine. All I wanted was be able to read well enough to read any book I wanted.
You were a Gerber baby.
I was, in a way, yes.
So you left there in 38, is that right?
About, yeah.
And that's when you came to Berkeley?
That's about when we came. Well, yeah, because we were there for a couple of years before the war came. And my dad went off. Yeah.
What are your memories of Elwood Decker?
Oh, well, Elwood Decker was one of the longest Dunites. He was there for years, then he married, then they were in Hollywood for years, then he came back and lived in the Dune, and he was wonderful. I loved his pictures. I got some, actually, and Elwood was like an uncle.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. Now, he lived 2 or 3 miles from the rest of us, but so did Sammy when he was there. No, Elwood was, he was a very long time good. I don't remember anyone who didn't like Elwood.
Could you tell us who did?
He's a painter.
Elwood was a painter and photographer. Was he? Did he also do photography?
He did a little, but never really professional. He did very simple pictures of shapes, mostly shapes of different sorts and different colors, and a lot of balancing and a lot of depth. And he was really, his paintings were different than anyone's. I didn't think he was the best painter, but many people did. And I liked his work, or I wouldn't still have him.
You said earlier that you kept in sort of spotty communication with Sam Cohen over the years, and were there others?
No, I didn't.
Oh, no?
Not after he went to live with Baba and stuff, no. Postcard would come every 15 years. Yeah.
Were others in communication also, sending postcards?
They only got one every 25.
So she was a frequent correspondent.
Hi. I recently heard about Baba only 2 months ago, so I haven't heard about you before. I'm looking forward to reading your book, and reading all your memories is great. So it sounds like Baba had a big impact on you, and you have these profound dreams now. What does he mean to you? What is Baba to you? How do you practice? How is he in your life? And
I think the memory of him and his belief in many lives toppled me into theosophy, which I was toppling into anyhow because they were right next door, and most of our people close to us were theosophists. I can remember swinging one day. I had just learned that people died, so I was still fairly young. And although how I could have lived in a doctor's house on and off and not knowing people died, anyway, I got the feeling that it wasn't so bad if people died, if they came back as cats and dogs and whatever. Well, theosophists believe you go through different cycles, and I thought, oh, if I could see my father again, I wouldn't care what he was. or my mother, or I wouldn't care what I was, and I wouldn't think he would either. So I think it was that kind of feeling, and certainly the Baba had that effect plus on him. So I think that those things had a lot to do with it.
You feel him around you, like he drove you to this direction, like you, like as in, you're not a Baba lover, but what?
I feel that his was one of the best presences in my life. And I feel that I had an extraordinarily fortunate life. But let me read you the part of the book that I wrote about the Meher Baba. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Are you okay to read? Do you feel like
Would you prefer somebody else to read?
Oh, well, I'll hand it to Leah if I can't do it. Oh, I went back to Moynell as soon as school was out for the 3-week Christmas holiday. Rudy drove me down at low tide on a clear, cold day. Half a dozen seals played in the breakers. The beach was covered with seaweed. It smelled fresh and salty. The minute Rudy stopped the car, I jumped out and started turning cartwheels. I was home. A week later, Rudy came down again with the news he'd gotten a phone call from Princess Matchbelly of the Perfume family, the princess who had paid to build the Siri Meher Baba's guest house in Moynell. Rudy didn't catch everything she said because half the people on his 10-party line were listening in, rustling and coughing. However, he gathered that the Meher Baba and his retinue of 18 would finally be arriving in Moynell a day or so after Christmas. Gavin had gone to New York to see a new girlfriend, and no one knew where he could be reached. Gavin had, however, left money for sheets, blankets, pillows, and food in case the Meher Baba and his friends ever came. My mother was to help buy sheets. Rudy later claimed that he and my mother bought every sheet, blanket, and pillow for sale in San Luis Obispo. Then he borrowed flashlights and kerosene lamps from neighbors. Everyone in Moynell worked getting the beds set up and the houses clean. But what should we do about food? Were all Hindus vegetarians? Did they eat anything but curry? Did we have to keep food from being profane for the Baba? As we had the house Sammy had built? For the holy man? Did he need his own outhouse? Gavin and Dunham were our best cooks, and they were away. In the end, so many Dunites came by with clams that Carl dug potatoes, carrots, and parsley from his garden, milked Dancer, and he and Doggett made a wash tub of chowder. Someone would eat it. Then, using Rudy's car, Carl and Hugo Seeley collected dummy sacks full of vegetable coals from the packing shed. We piled them in the back seat of the car. Sammy and Rudy bought everything else, including a 50-pound sack of rice on credit from Angelo's store. Carl Angelo figured that if the princess were involved, her credit must be good. He turned out to be right. With all the food, there wasn't room in the car for Hugo and me, so we walked back to Moynell. Later, we found out that the Meher Baba and his disciples stopped to visit with the Gerbers on Christmas Day. Rudy was thrilled to have one of the most revered religious leaders in the world as his guest. Hugo and I were nearing the path into Moynell when 3 touring cars filled with the Baba and his disciples passed us and slowed to a stop. "Come on, Hugo, let's hurry and catch up," I said, yelled, but Hugo caught my hand and pulled me back behind the dune as Sammy Cohen greeted people fumbling out of cars. "Quiet, Ella. You can often learn a great deal by quietly watching and not barging in where we may not be wanted yet." I pouted, but Hugo was usually right. He was a poet, a very good one. So I crouched behind our dune and watched as men in flowing white robes helped the women and men in pants and windbreakers out of the cars. I thought the woman would have long dresses and fur coats. I grumbled. Hugo grinned, but continued watching intently as the newcomers, led by a man with curly brown hair to his shoulders, pressed their hands together. It looked like praying, though no one said a word. "That's the Syrian Meher Baba," Hugo whispered. We watched as they put on backpacks and started up the path by the willows. I thought they looked like a royal procession, everyone walking straight and proud. By the time we got there, the Meher Baba and his friends had walked around Moynell, and the Baba had decided to stay in Gavin's house. He'd met Gavin in Hollywood and liked his vibration, his aura, Princess Machiavelli, and Sierra's path. Mrs. Patterson could use the guest house. Nothing this exciting had ever happened in the Dune. Here was a major religious leader, an avatar, Hugo said, coming to visit us before he broke his 7-year silence in the Hollywood Bowl. Our code shone for the Baba. The dandelions were still out, and morning glories were starting to bloom. Eucalyptus and sagebrush flowers sweet in the air. Anyhow, then I go on to say how they meet at night, and you've heard me talk about all of this, but get a move on, Ella. The holy man wants to meet you, Doggett said, helping me up. I took off running. The Baba felt a child's karma and wants to meet you. Marion's face was glowing. That's my mother. Inside the community house, tables had been shoved against the walls, and the Baba's disciples and Moynell people sat at them or squatted. Marion gave me a little shove. Then, as if I'd been hypnotized, I walked around people toward the Meher Baba. I was 6.5. As I write, I can still feel the warmth of those brown eyes and my smile going straight to my heart. He put his hand on my head, and I felt warm all the way down to my toes. He pressed gently, and I smiled. I knew he didn't speak. I remember a greenish slate in chalk, but I didn't see him use it. He held an alphabet square with one hand. He had an interpreter. I meant to tell the Baba how much Sammy admired him, but there was Sammy sitting next to him. I don't remember if I said a word, but I do remember feeling blessed in the warm glow in light from his face, and I remember the happiness in my mother's eyes. Okay, that's kind of it on that. There's a little bit more. And I can still look out and imagine the Baba and Princess Machiavelli and the heiress Elizabeth Patterson walking over the tops of the moon. I can close my eyes and call up the Baba, his robes blowing in the wind, and the women in jacket and jeans and berets on either side of it. The women were talking, and it didn't seem to bother either of them that the Baba still hadn't said a word. I can still hear the waves crashing onto the beach behind. We were all quiet and gentle with each other for a while after the Meher Baba and his friends left. There was a lot of meditating and talk of the soul. We're a bit hung over on spirituality, as Carl put it. He's the holiest man we'll ever meet, Hugo said. And my mother noticed tears in Hugo's eyes. Okay. And then it tells us about the dunes collapsing. Here's a Dune forum cover done by one of the Westons. I think this is Edward. And
Do you still have the magazine?
yes, I do.
Every one of them?
I have 7.
How many do you think that were ordered?
I think there were 7 or 8. No, I'm not. Yeah.
Did your mom take any photos of Baba?
I don't think so. I don't.
Did she keep a journal?
My mother, no. My mother was a very talented person who was prone to mental breakdowns. In fact, later she spent 28 years in the mental hospital. So, and I'd like to tell you just a few of the people who were there, who later became rather famous, just for fun. Dunham was pleased, Dunham, my father. We were pulling out of the Depression by the time Dunham and I reached Berkeley in 1938. I loved school and playing Seabiscuit with the other neighborhood kids. Dunham was pleased with his editing on Dune Forum and felt the magazine had an influence beyond the couple of years it was published. Edward and Brett Weston, Ansel Adams, and Willard Van Dyke got early recognition for their jacket photographs. Langston Hughes, Robinson Jeffers, Helen Hoyt, and Hugo Seelig published poetry. Gavin Arthur, Stuart Edward White, Ella Young, John Cage, and my father wrote stimulating debates and commentary. Thomas Hanford had sent drawings from Peking for the Dune Forum and went on to win the first Caldecott Award for children's illustration. Many writers came to Cornell to read quietly or read aloud. Upton Sinclair started writing again after he lost the race to become the first Democratic governor of California. His work has been translated around the world. Now here I talk about John Steinbeck, but then later, spiritual leaders of many faiths, Theosophists, Buddhists, and Hindu, continued to visit. The Meher Baba didn't break his silence for the rest of his life. He stayed mute using the blackboard and hand signals for 44 years in all. The Baba made several more trips to Hollywood, founded an ashram in North Carolina, but didn't come back to the Dunes. He is an avatar and his movement thrives today. And so that my father, well, Gavin Arthur joined the Merchant Marine. And here's my little brother.
Is your little brother still alive?
No, my little brother unfortunately died a couple of years ago. Much to my great sadness, because we didn't grow up together, but we grew up across the street. think we found we could confide in each other the way we felt about them. Probably because we had some of the same experiences. My brother grew up in a series of foster homes. Then lived with us, with Lee and I, while he was in college. And I guess he did a little before college.
Not much. We just got to know him when he graduated from high school.
That's right, and we had to take responsibility for him, or he couldn't go to college.
Well, couldn't get away from the foster home.
Yeah. Which he wanted very much to do.
He met Meher Baba too?
No, he was much younger than me.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So he was never in the dunes, right? He never lived in the dunes.
Oh, yes. For a while when he was little. In fact, I think one of the best sequences in this book talks about setting out to find him in the midst of a party for Hugo's book.
Away from family,
That's okay.
I don't know how long you stayed at the Theosophists. I don't know if
I still am. I'm not a total anything, but I depend on Theosophists.
Well, I don't know if you know that there were two Theosophists who met Meher Baba at the dock when he first arrived in 1931 to America for the first time, Catherine Gardner and Alice Green. And they lived to be very old. Catherine was 100 and something, and she died 102 in Ohio. I was wondering if you knew them, even though you were a little girl then.
No, but I'd heard about the meeting. I don't know whether I knew them. You know.
I met later on in life, as you still, were at the Theosophists.
Yes, but I'm
Ohio.
I'm kind of a personal Theosophist.
Thank you.
I'm very close to the woman who's head of the Theosophist Temple now, Ellen Shumway. But that's because I used to be her babysitter. So yes.
I have a question. Any of the people that know Baba before he arrived at the tomb today turning to Baba lovers when he left? What was everyone talking about when he left? And what was the impact of?
That's a very good question, because a lot of people did turn into Baba lovers, but they weren't. I don't know that people joined any group. I think they just stayed. Many people after Baba left were Baba lovers, and that's why everyone was so gentle with each other for a while. But that wasn't a period in life when people were joining. I think it was a period in life when people were surviving and helping the person next to them more than anything else. Yes.
I don't know if I speak for the rest of the room here, but I feel like you're a treasure that Baba has saved for us till now. And you have to know that we all consider you very blessed and distinctly special. And I feel that Baba has many treasures in store for you.
Well, he's certainly given me treasures. I feel. Yes. This one. We've been married 63 years.
How did that? It sounds like Leo, you're saying that you were living on the dunes too.
No.
No.
I came along I came along later, but the tie to the dunes was very strong. It still exists, that you could walk back into the dunes and feel some of the life that was there at that time. Even though the National Guard had been in during the war, such because I came after but the dunes were special now then, and since then the dune buggies have invaded that area. And although they're prohibited from going into some area, really it's the whole dune experience is difficult to feel because the vegetation which was there, but the dunes move, they stay alive, and so you can't really see exactly what was there. And during World War II, I think from what I gather, from what Ella has said and other people have said, is that the National Guard was posted there because there was there were reports of Japanese submarines. Well, these were young guys, and they had nothing to do with life other than live their life, and so there were these shacks, and I think that they used the wood of the shacks because it was more convenient than the driftwood, plus it was dry, as firewood to keep warm. And so the whole area was changed. I could get the benefit because Ella could tell me what it was. So I think I got a different feeling. But it was a special place because water was accessible in the dunes, the sand dunes, next to the saltwater ocean.
That is that the center in South Carolina is the same.
That's the same.
There's the ocean and then dunes, and then there are 7 freshwater spring lakes right now.
This is Elizabeth Patterson's father that it was saying donated the land, and that's the ashram that you mentioned in the book. It's actually South Carolina, not North Carolina.
They have the freshwater lake right.
It's past already.
Well, anybody have any more questions?
It's funny that people from Australia and Sam Cohen not the same?
No, wait a minute. Russ and Sig Varian were theosophists, and Russ was my father's best friend for years and years and years. And so I grew up with Russ, more Russ than Sig, because Sig was away quite a bit. And they lived in the East quite a bit. But when they got together again, they invented the Christ on Tube. And I always thought they saved us the war.
They invented what?
Christ on Tube.
What is that?
It's the tube that's required for radar, essentially, and television.
Russ Varian and Sig Varian.
Varian.
Varian Industries.
Yes.
And he was your father's best friend.
And was he in the dunes as well?
No, he was in Halcyon, the Theosophist community that lives next.
In down there in that area.
Yes.
The ones who had money.
About 3 miles from the dunes.
What an incredible group of people.
Oh, I feel very, very fortunate. In fact, not only that, Russ showed me what all the parts that went in the car were when our car got downed in the ocean and pulled out. And my dad had to drive it to New York, and so Varians helped me get it going again.
They took apart, washed out the salt water.
Yeah. And I managed not to remember anything, which was never let me forget.
Wouldn't do any good today if the car was in the hand.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. You were there when they were pushing when when Baba and the group were pushing the car, or not Baba was pushing it probably, but the car stalled, was it, on the sand, and they were pushing it down the beach?
Oh, yes.
Were you there?
Well,
What
I
kind of
saw it,
scene? Tell us about it.
yeah. Well, what happened actually was a bunch of, the vegetables fell out of the back. And they had to get out, and some of the, Baba's clothing were the ladies' clothing, who knows, fell out, and they had to stop and put it back in. So the car didn't actually get stuck from what I saw. Now, I don't know. I heard that the car may have gotten stuck when they were leaving the beach. I'm not sure. That's right, in the dry sand, I think. Yeah, and then they had to push it back to the wet sand. Yeah, I think I did hear that, but I didn't see that.
Did you eat together? Did you eat with him, with Bob? Did you ever get to eat a meal? He was just there overnight, right?
Well, he was there a couple of, well, no, overnight.
Christmas
and the
Eve
next
and
day.
then Christmas?
No, it was the 27th and the 20th. He came down the night of the 27th and stayed.
He came on Christmas, it says in
He came on Christmas to Oceano and visited Rudy Gerber.
Oh, I see.
He didn't come down. He must have stayed in a hotel or something. I don't know.
There's this picture here. It's the foursome, including Lou of the Senate. It says it was taken on December 25th, 26th.
Yeah, that way.
Did Hugo die there? Did he stay in the dunes?
Yes, Hugo did die. I think he died actually in San Luis in a hospital. I'm not sure.
You were there?
His
Hugo was in San Luis.
Yeah. You know, toward later, Lee and I have lived in 9 countries since we've been married. So I wasn't always around as an adult.
Well, you get postcards every 15 years.
Well, maybe. Yeah. So some of these later things I can't really answer because I don't know if
Sure,
I knew
no
them or
problem.
didn't know them or wasn't around or wasn't around.
That's fine.
Where'd you two meet?
Well, we met. I had been in flat on my back with tuberculosis. And when I began to get well and got up, I made a very close friend a block away named Marge Quinlan. And she was dating a guy named Leo Ellis. But she had, before Lee and I met, and so she asked Lee to get someone for a blind date for me. And so we went to the Cal Big Game Dance. But Marge, by this time, had just met the man she was going to marry. So I didn't feel guilty at all.
You still okay on this?